a heavy drop.
Do you have Nick's phone number?
I don't.
I'm gonna see how I can.
The third day, I was like,
Yeah, he said they had gone up and moved so many miles and come around the base, and he said he was just so gassed he didn't even know what to do.
64.
Yeah.
62.
Yeah. I said, what are you doing chasing the guys? You got 30-year-olds and 20-year-olds to do this, Nick. He's like, oh, I gotta be with them.
Dude.
Oh, I'm all set. Thank you very much. I just concluded the moment that you uttered that.
Oh, okay. So if we can get these chairs
Just amazing.
resituated so people actually feel like they can sit in them. Put some back here. Yeah, I know. I don't, it's not, there, that's a little close.
Yeah.
People can choose to sit.
Yep.
How they want.
She actually did. She not only survived, but they redefined her position. So she's actually going to be doing more stuff than she wants to do. Yeah, it was kind of iffy.
Are you gonna sit?
That day, she had to go have some dental work done, and so she's in the chair, and all this stuff is, all these phones blowing up and people.
Yeah.
We got whacked, and there was a lot of. They got rid of fundraising, but there was a lot of dead weight in that department, so they shaved everything down.
Good. Well, sometimes corporations have a tendency to keep dead weight and get rid of good people, so they did the opposite. That's a good thing.
This time they actually got rid of the right people. And she's been there 25 years. So she's pretty ensconced in that department. She's very talented, everyone knows that.
Yeah.
But she's had a history of bad bosses in the finance department. Now, her boss, her current boss just got fired, it was awful. So she's thrilled, she couldn't be any happier. Well, now her workload is probably doubled, but
Yeah, well.
she's less time to paint.
Well, hopefully they'll reward her
I'm already
rightly for her new work that she's doing.
Oh,
So are we going to take what?
I don't know. Check with Kathy, see if she's.
Technically, I'm in the other room. It's just you, Chris? It looks like it. Not that that's a bad
that's
thing.
all that matters.
Like I said, not that that's a bad thing.
It's not.
I would think the recorder would be here, but
I would think so.
we're just gonna start
I
this
have
one.
no idea where to put this water if I needed to use it. Never thought of that.
Nice TV.
It's so pretty. Yeah, that's the monitor.
Do you want me to put a chair next to you there or something?
Maybe it's a good idea. I can't use this that easily, so I will put it
On your
here.
left side?
Yeah.
So this will be
Oh,
on
no,
the
I got
Chromecast.
Perfect.
Is this smart TV?
Yeah,
Excellent.
That'd be
do.
alright.
That Roku?
No,
Someone wants me to get one of these for them.
we're doing it for, I think it's meetings only.
Yeah.
It might be Roku actually, but I don't think we're.
That's nice.
Recording and streaming.
Oh, no, if it
It's not for
was
watching TV.
I was just gonna say,
Maybe it is.
don't need any more distractions.
You have water
I do,
out there?
right here.
Oh, here.
Don't leave me a voicemail.
And wetness.
You have any of that.
Thank you.
A couple minutes there. Got
1
a
minute?
couple more to go. So, are we ready? Okay. Good morning, everyone, and to those of you who aren't here but are watching live. As much as I am speaking to you folks in the media today, I'm also speaking to the people of Greenfield and to our city employees at this, the 6-month mark of being your mayor. So why do I count the months? Oh, why don't I? I might not have in a different time, but this year is a year to mark time and to acknowledge the road we've all traveled together. I've been inspired and enlightened by Greenfield's response to the first 6 months of 2020. And the historic challenges that it's presented. As I've said before, no single elected official could have expected or anticipated what we have all collectively gone through so far in 2020. But I want everyone to know your city is in good hands, not because of me, not because I just said so, but because of you, the people of Greenfield, who took this pandemic seriously, did the hard work and sacrifice that it took to get us to this point. And especially because of the people who work for the city of Greenfield, who show up every day to work for you, even when there's a deadly pandemic. I fully understand that we're not out of this yet, and we have much work to do to keep ourselves safe while recovering and rebuilding. And recovering and rebuilding we will do. We've already begun. But at this point in time, it's appropriate for me to thank you and to thank others who have led us to today. I, as mayor, am only as good a leader as those who lead with me. So let me acknowledge city residents. Thank you for working together, supporting each other, and finding ways to survive through a very difficult time. People will look back and remember what we've gone through. I'm happy to say I was in Greenfield with you. To our city employees, thank you for your flexibility and adaptability during a time when there were many unknowns and certainly not the most comforting or comfortable working environment. Still, everyone rose to the occasion to make plans that have worked, utilize technology to get the job done, and come together, while separate, to keep the crucial work of Greenfield moving forward. The great news is we've answered a lot of previously unknown questions about remote meeting technology. Some of them we wish we didn't know the answer to. And telecommuting that will hopefully save us money in the future. I also want to thank the EOC staff, a few of you who are here. The opening of the city's Emergency Operations Center was one of the proudest moments of my time in office so far. And the staff there worked tirelessly to ensure our city was as prepared as possible for the unknown. They did so with complete competence, professionalism, and enthusiasm. Greenfield Police Department, thank you to Chief Robert Hay and the Greenfield Police Department for all their assistance, their candor, and professionalism during our COVID-19 pandemic and on into today. We appreciate all that you do for our community to keep us safe. The Greenfield Fire Department, a huge thank you to Chief Strahan and the Greenfield Fire Department. And I know the chief is lurking around here somewhere. But anyway, as manager in charge of the city's Emergency Response Center at the John Zahn Community and Senior Center, Chief Strahan, through his abundant knowledge of emergency management operations, ensured that our city was ahead of the pack on many fronts. The early establishment of an EOC, an Emergency Operations Command Center, bringing in other expert colleagues from around the county, the acquisition of crucially important PPE and a regional coordinated distribution of that PPE so that the surrounding towns that have fewer resources had that available to them. None of that could have been done without your foresight and your leadership. The Greenfield Health Department. Thank you to Valerie Bird and her staff at the Board of Health, who never wavered in their professionalism and commitment to not only keeping us safe and providing us with the daily information that we needed to chart where we were during the course of this pandemic, but also to continue to do the day-to-day health department work with the minimal staff that they have so that the important work and projects of this city could go on, knowing that they had our backs in terms of health and safety. And thank you to Director Warner of the DPW and to the DPW staff who kept DPW running throughout, keeping our drinking water safe and keeping the trash and recycling picked up. These things are often taken for granted, so you deserve a special thank you, all of you. I know you worked hard at it. Parks and Recreation, thank you to Christy Moore and the Parks and Recreation staff. You've helped us feel some sense of normalcy despite everything that's going on. And I especially want to thank you for taking on the responsibility of emergency childcare for our emergency responders and first line people, essential staff. And you've had to make some very hard decisions as well about how to safely offer your services to our residents. And I want to acknowledge that, because it's hard on our residents too, not to be able to have summer camps, not to be able to have fireworks, not to do all those things that you seamlessly get done during the summer. So we're gonna hope for a better next year. Veteran Services, thank you to Tim and his staff at Veteran Services for making sure our veterans in our area had access to the services that they needed. And thank you to Hope McCary of the Council on Aging and the Senior Center and her staff for letting us, one, take over the John Zahn Center for our EOC for many, many weeks, and while still reaching out to support our seniors on a daily basis. As you might imagine, many of our accomplishments in this first 6 months were COVID-19 related, and many were not. I refer you to the handout for the complete list, but I do want to call attention to a couple of them. In January, I call it BC, DC, AC. Before COVID, during COVID, after COVID. So BC, January, mind you, it was one short month before we began to prepare for COVID-19, which took up the bulk of our time this year. I eliminated Saturday paid parking and eliminated the school resource officer from the police department budget. By early February, we were planning our response to the pandemic, and not a moment too soon, as we now know. In March, I declared a state of emergency, allowing us to access FEMA and MEMA funds and other funding in order to have the resources to keep us safe while responding to the onslaught and effects of the virus on our community and on our economy. We explored new ways to establish working conditions for our essential and non-essential workers, to keep them safe and to allow them paid time off should they or their families become sick. And I'm proud to say that we were able to do that without any layoffs or furloughs. As the virus began to surge, even in this community, I issued a mask order. It's right here. I prefer not to wear it when I'm trying to communicate with people. So, I issued a mask order, and we established a homemade mask program that had given out well over 700 masks to residents and city employees, and I want to thank everyone, every single person who was responsible for giving us those masks. we began contact tracing in March, and we're one of the first communities in Western Massachusetts to do so. We continue to do that and likely will until we reach phase 5, whenever that is. As we began to flatten the curve, which we essentially have done, we've largely achieved that for the time being, we began to think of recovery and how to help our small businesses that had been hit so hard. I'm gonna, right now, turn the conference over briefly to MJ Adams, our Economic and Community Development Director, so that she can tell you about the ways in which we've helped many of our businesses through a loan program that we established, and to give you some further updates about how we continue to prepare for the future. So, want to come up here?
Hi, I'm MJ Adams. I'm the Director of Community and Economic Development for the City of Greenfield, and have the pleasure to serve this fine community under the leadership of Mayor Rhoda Gardner. We've been very busy the last couple of months. I was assigned to work with the Emergency Operations Center, and deeply appreciate the opportunity to work with my fine colleagues, and I've got to say, to the credit of everyone involved, it was an extraordinary team building exercise, which I think will serve the community extremely well moving forward. My immediate responsibilities at the Emergency Operations Center was really to work with the community, the organizations in the community that manage the homeless population. And we worked diligently and were successful in finding facilities that could decongregate, so that the homeless individuals who live up here in our community would be as safe as those living in their own apartments. We also worked diligently with the business community, first recognizing that they were going to be pretty profoundly impacted by the closing down of businesses and the shelter-in-place orders that caused us all to stop coming downtown, stop going out to shopping areas, stopped a lot of community economic activity, stopped many of us from working. One of the first things we did was to scramble to try to create a microenterprise assistance program, which would really focus on the very small businesses, the mom and pop operations, that really at first did not seem like they had an easy way into the federal programs that were being provided for them. So we created the microenterprise assistance program, opened it up, started developing it and advertising it in April, opened it up for applications in May, and to date we've had 39 applications. We've made 5 awards, and we have 4 in process. The best thing about the 39 applications, though, is that it put them in touch with the Franklin County Community Development Corporation, who then also provided technical assistance to help those small businesses navigate some of the challenges of applying for the Paycheck Protection Program. Many of them were successful in doing that, and I really appreciate the work that the Franklin County CDC staff did in terms of making that process available and accessible to our small businesses. Once we started working with the Greenfield businesses, we realized that there was a regional impact to this economic shutdown. So we started working with our colleagues in the other municipalities, and were able to submit a grant application to the state for community development block grant funds to create a regional micro enterprise assistance program. We have application. Additionally, we've been working very extensively with the downtown restaurants and business community to explore opportunities to help them establish outdoor dining. I've got to say that the mayor and chief of staff Danny and the licensing board moved very quickly in modifying some of the licensing processes that would enable the outdoor dining to happen very quickly. And today we have several businesses, several restaurants that have opened up and are doing outdoor dining. We are applying for some funds to go ahead and to get additional equipment so that the outdoor dining setups are comfortable and safe. And we're hoping to see, you've already seen some of the restaurants set up their own makeshift, and we're looking to supplement what they've done with some stronger protection and more elegant protection from the travel lane and the dining areas. I'm also happy to report that the Garden Cinema wheelchair lift has been installed, or is in the middle of being installed. We also, I wanna make you aware that, the food pantry has had to expand because of the changing operations. They moved out to one of the school buildings, they need to be out of that building, so we are actually modifying a downtown location to make it handicap accessible so that the food pantry, the Center for Self-Reliant, will be moving to the downtown area, fairly soon. And then we are also continuing, on the home front with the homeless population. We are looking to make arrangements for the winter homeless sheltering, which will need to be expanded. As you know, we've done the warming center this past year, and we're looking to make facilities available for this next winter to cover that need. That's it.
Thank you, MJ. That's quite impressive. I know for a fact there's more, but more will be revealed as we go on. So, as for the future, we need to continue to be diligent about physical distancing, wearing masks when you can't properly practice physical distancing, and washing and sanitizing our hands. I think we can see what is happening from what is happening across the country. That practicing those things on a regular and daily basis, as difficult as they can be, especially now in the heat, is really the way you bring this thing to its knees and keep protecting yourself until such time as we can have a vaccine, or like SARS, just goes away. What I really want to emphasize right now is this. In the beginning, we had no playbook to help us navigate a deadly and aggressive pandemic. We've got one now. We will know what to do if this surges again, and we are prepared to do it here in the city of Greenfield. While I want to acknowledge and thank the City Council for the timely and thorough work they did on vetting and passing our FY21 budget, today's the beginning of FY21, I want to level with all of you. FY21 will be a very difficult and lean year. We still don't know what kind of state aid we will receive because, like the city, the state has experienced lost revenue as well. We hope to know more by the end of August, and we are preparing for the additional cuts in our total budget that may need to be taken as a result of our reduced state aid. We will keep you informed as we learn more and have more concrete information about the steps that we will need to take, but I'm afraid we will need to take some. In closing, before I take your questions, I want to make note of the fact that today our society as a whole, and more importantly our own community, are at an important turning point where the causes of social and racial justice, public safety, increased affordable housing, and wealth equity are uppermost in our minds and in our dialogue with one another. And I am committed to working with you as your mayor throughout this term of office on those issues to the greatest extent possible. Going forward, within the next 6 months, I plan to establish a permanent housing partnership made up of local experts, business people, landlords, and activists to advise me and to work on improving housing in Greenfield. I am currently in discussion with Police Chief Robert Haig about how he and his officers can create greater trust and communication through a more focused and community policing. I think that's it. I am happy to take questions, and if you have them.
I have a question about the school resource officer.
Yes.
My understanding is that that's required under state law, and the school committee and the city side of the budget haven't decided what to do about that moving forward. You took it out of the budget, and I'm wondering if you're rethinking that now, given the fact that it is required.
So your question was about the school resource officer the fact that it's required under state law, and what might we be thinking about going forward, understanding that there is that requirement. My understanding of the state law and is, in a sense, the history of it is there was a point in time a while back when we were all very concerned about school safety, and we still are. But, it goes back a few years now. So one solution was, let's have a member of the police force within the schools to help ensure that if anything dangerous or bad happened, that they would be there as a resource in order to quell whatever might be happening, or to make recommendations about how to go forward. I think it's had some measure of success, I'm sure, in many communities, and some communities not so much. Things change, laws change, and I think that this is an important time to think about how we might be able to utilize those resources going forward in a different way. Doesn't mean we cut the public safety piece of it out, it just means that they remain in the background and available to others while we try to focus on meeting the needs of all of our students, in emotional needs and challenges that face them all on a daily basis. So we will come to a conclusion on that. You're right, I'm assuming that we have a school committee meeting in the next week or so, hoping that will be on the agenda so that we can have a thorough conversation about it. So, any other questions?
I have one other cop question. So far, the city council has not brought forward any effort to reduce the police budget. If that happens, and it comes to your desk, will you sign it or veto it?
Well, they can't actually reduce the budget at this point in time. The budget is set for FY21. What happens with budget discussions for FY22 is an open question. So, as far as I know, there's no plan to reduce the FY20 budget any further than it has already been reduced. Is that it?
I have one more if you don't mind.
Sure.
And this is the last one I'll ask.
Go for it.
The fourth quarter property taxes were due the 29th.
Yeah.
And I know that there are people in Greenfield right now, some of whom are opening their tax bills and seem somewhat dismayed at the increases and are concerned that those increases are going to continue. Do you have a message for the taxpayers in Greenfield regarding property taxes moving forward?
Well, I'm grateful for those of you who did come in between May 1st and June 29th, which was Monday, and paid your taxes. And it's my understanding that maybe all but 100 or thereabouts people have done that. And that's not unusual. Almost every year we have someone who struggles to pay their, 100 or so people who struggle to pay their taxes. Hopefully it gets done over time without too much of a burden. As far as the conversation going forward about increased taxes, I do want to call your attention to the fact that we work very, very hard not to keep our budget in line. And I want to acknowledge the really hard and difficult work that the school committee and the superintendent did to also bring their budget in line so that we could go into FY91 with a full budget intact. As I said earlier, we don't know what will happen. But I do want to make sure that people understand that we worked very hard in doing that to keep your taxes at a reasonable level. It's always going to increase until we can get more economic activity, and you see where we're at today because of the pandemic and things that we had no control over. Doesn't mean I'm going to stop working hard on that, but it will be with more challenges. A lot of what we have in our budget is contractual. Those increases are built in. We have 3 bargaining units going forward for FY22's contracts expire at the end of this year, so hopefully we'll be able to hold the line in many ways on those contracts. But I can't guarantee that. People deserve to make a living doing the jobs that they do so well. So we worked hard this year not to hit the levy ceiling or to cause a 2.5 override. I will make every effort going forward to see that that does not happen. But understand, costs increase. We have no idea what the final impact of FY20 and the COVID-19 pandemic will be, both on FY21 as we go forward, but as we begin to prepare FY22. It will all greatly depend on improving our revenues. And I've been getting some good news on that. A little bit of good news on that. So hopefully we'll go into this budget season in the next few months with a clear understanding of the very basics that the city needs, and go from there. Okay, well, thank you all of you, and appreciate your being here. And as I said, I appreciate all of you who helped get me to this point. Thank you. Well, good job, Chris.